Welcome to SpeakUp Talks, a podcast series by SpeakUp to share knowledge about building a safer world to speak up. Today, we're talking about whistleblowing with experts. Keep listening to know how AI can enhance transparency, automate case management, and more valuable topics. This podcast is an audio recording of our webinar. Find the full webinar on speakup.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar. Thank you very much for joining us here today. We're here to talk about using AI in whistleblowing. Weird match. My name is Maria and I will be your host for today. Let's begin. So today I have with me Olaf Wolters. Olaf has 20 years of experience in digital law. He's a huge fan of using big data and agile methodologies in compliance. And he has a lot of experience setting up data-driven compliance management systems.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We have with us Mule Kaptein.
Hi.
Mule is a strong voice and professor of business ethics and integrity. He has a lot of experience in helping organizations implement all sorts of whistleblowing processes. Welcome, Mule. And with us is also Marijn Storm. Marijn is a privacy lawyer who specializes in new technologies with a lot of experience with AI projects in various sectors. He's very intrigued by how AI can be used to enhance human abilities instead of trying to replace them. This is going to be a very interesting discussion. Thank you all very much for being here. Let's get started. Might seem like a trivial question, but to set the tone properly for the discussion, what is AI?
Well, that's indeed the million-dollar question, especially also when you look at it from the legal point of view, because there's countries all over the world right now that are trying to regulate AI. But to do so, the question is first, what are you actually going to regulate? And if we look at it just from a marketing point of view, any sort of smart or new software is called AI, even if it doesn't have any really artificial intelligence in it. So the one good thing for companies that are active in across the globe is that in both the EU and the US, they're now working towards taking the same definition of AI. So you don't have your system that in the EU qualifies as AI, but not in the US, which is important. And they're saying that to qualify as an AI system, you need to meet 4 requirements. First of all, well, it's a machine-based system. Software, which is, I think, obvious, that uses objectives defined by a human. So if it's totally working on its own, it's also not considered AI. And the system then creates an output based on those objectives that then has an impact on a real or virtual environment.
All right, and just to make a distinction, because everyone has heard of ChatGPT or similar technologies by now, that is generative AI.
Yes, and indeed, once we agree on the definition of AI, the definition of generative AI is actually relatively easy because that's just a subset of it. You have AI that generates recommendations or makes decisions, but generative AI is actually the subset that generates text or images or any other content. All right,
let's dig into it. So we're here to talk about using AI in whistleblowing. So if we look a little bit at the whistleblowing process as a whole, from start to end, how could AI, like which parts of the whistleblowing process could AI contribute to? What do you think, Olaf?
Well, I think it could contribute to all phases of whistleblowing, actually. Incoming messages could be supported by AI technology, figuring out the right information and helping the messenger to raise all concerns. We need to process the task, actually, and then, of course, processing the message in the company and the compliance department could be also assisted and supported by AI technology, finding the right department, for instance, and doing a quick analysis on whether the concern has raised to the right channel, actually. So I would consider it in every phase of the whistleblowing process.
Yeah, and even in the decision-making process. So when you have analyzed all the data and conducted all the interviews, so based on that, how to refer to that to, say, prevailing norms, rules, and coming up with a conclusion and also recommendations, and even for the aftercare. So AI presents many benefits for the whole phase for all phases in whistleblowing process.
Yeah.
So we have, on one hand, the communication part, first exchange with a reporter, where AI could contribute to, and then we have the case management or case handling and the steps that follow, right?
Yeah.
And we see contributions in all of those stages, in different ways, but still contributions.
Yeah, for example, just having AI in the intake, think about an avatar to which you, as an employee or a manager or an external stakeholder, report to. That's much more, say, flexible than and more approachable maybe than human beings right now. So
Whistleblowing in the metaverse.
yeah.
And then after the communication part with the case handling, let's say case management process, you mentioned, Olaf, that AI could help compliance professionals do some initial classification of reports.
Yeah, of course. For instance, for international operating companies, very important to attach the complaint to the right company in your group, for instance. So this is something which can be done by an AI technology, doing the triage, how to handle the complaint or the raised concern and forward it to the right department, since this is very time consuming, could be very time consuming. And if this is combined with the messaging process, that you are already asking the whistleblower the right questions to figure out how and where to forward the message, then of course this could be very helpful, could accelerate the process. And I see a lot of benefits in this area.
Yeah, for example, I think many compliance officers handling now, say, reports use a script written out on paper or on the screen, and AI can be much more flexible and self-learning also. So based on the answers a reporter gives, the AI provide you with, say, the follow-up question. So because the intake is always very important, that you ask the right questions, that you have the right information based on which you can decide how to handle the case in the rest of the process.
And if you have the right information, and then there's a case coming in and requires investigation, how could AI contribute to doing a better investigation in the process? What do you think?
Yeah, many whistleblowing cases contain require a lot of data. So a lot of data needs to be handled, and AI can be very helpful in handling huge amount of data. For example, all kinds of emails, of all kinds of financial data or whatever. And AI can be very helpful to look for inconsistencies, outliers, anomalies, etc. So AI can be very efficient to look for, say, inconsistencies in the data that is available. Or, for example, also when you have conducted a lot of interviews for handling your case, AI can be also very helpful to analyze those interviews reports.
And also as a privacy protective measure, if someone's looking for a specific set of your emails, I think most of us will agree that you'd rather have an automated system take them out than have someone from the compliance team go through your mailbox and also see your notes that you sent to the doctor.
Yeah, and additionally, actually, this is of course supporting my approach, saying that it's depending upon how the database of the company is, actually how much information do you have already, how digital is your company set up, actually, since AI will be just helpful if they can have access to this digital data sources, actually. So it makes sense to not just think about the messaging process, but also to all other digital systems like HR systems, as training systems and attached emails, communication systems, for instance. So this is the key for it. If you don't have that, of course, AI will have a very limited advantage for your whole overall system, actually.
So combining all of these different sources of data, then another part that we could see eventually AI contributing to would be some forecasting, maybe.
Yeah, but that is not a whistleblowing situation, I would say. So whistleblowing is always reactive, based on the concern, based on the report. You look what has happened, and people involved in the whistleblowing process are not looking to the future, because that's a different role and responsibility within the organization. So that's much more proactive monitoring, which is also very important, but I think not part of the whistleblowing process.
For now.
Actually, it depends upon whether how strong your system and your database is. Since I think a very intelligent whistleblowing system could make a forecast and can give you an idea in which area you might expect the next big issue. For instance, if you see that the training rates in your company are going down, due to something like Corona, for instance, where you don't have these extensive training situation, maybe, then of course the system can see that, we are expecting upcoming cases in this or that area, depending upon an AI forecast. But of course, this needs to be combined with other systems.
I would prefer to have, say, the whistleblowing system independent from, say, all other compliance monitoring systems, because then you have also all kinds of information that is going from one system to the other, or all in one system. So, and that's maybe slightly dangerous.
But yes.
And I think indeed this is also the most risky use of AI, because you'd always be using historic data to then predict what people are going to do. And well, as you see exactly with, there have been some trials with predictive policing. If you say, well, this group of people is going to commit more crime, we're going to monitor them more, you will find more crime just because you monitor them more. So you create a self-fulfilling prophecy as well.
Yes, exactly. And this is what we're here to discuss, exactly, that, it could contribute to this part. Should we use it for that purpose? If we go back to the initial crucial communication part of the whistleblowing procedure, do you think that AI integrations will increase the likelihood of people speaking up, or can this maybe have the opposite effect? What do you think, Neil?
Yes, I think I'm a strong believer of that, because we are increasingly used to use, say, chatbot and etc. to raise concerns, to have conversations, and etc. So we already do that among many organizations towards our communication with, for example, our customers and clients. But I think nowadays we should also give, say, employees the option to have, say, to report by, say, AI or chatbot or whatever, but also doing it by email or doing it in another online version, or even having a personal meeting with someone to raise their concerns. And especially in those cases where people are, say, the victim of misconduct, for example, sexual harassment, well, I think they are more looking for someone who listens to them carefully, patiently, and empathetically, than instead of, say, a chatbot or whatever, who is not that empathetic, I'm afraid, yet.
Yes, and I can actually see that people are voting on the same question, and it looks like most of the people would agree with Muel that it will help speaking up, and then another big part, just say it depends.
Yeah,
what do you think, Olaf?
It really depends.
That's the easy one.
That's the easy one. But I think it's more attached to the implementation of the whistleblowing system itself in the company. Actually, if the whistleblowing system is already established and rolled out in your company, it could be have an additional value, since it could accelerate the whole process, makes it easier actually to raise a concern. Then AI will be supporting that. But of course, if you don't have a SpeakUp culture in your company, and the whistleblowing system is not known to everyone, to the company, then of course it might be difficult actually to promote it solely saying that now we have AI and everything is going fine. I don't think like that. I think it's really dependent upon your company culture with respect to speaking up, and compliance a big concern. And so it's more attached to company communication culture, I think.
Yeah, and I think, sorry.
Yeah, no, I would say that it's to maintain the trust within your organization. I think it's great to have both options, as long as it's always clear to someone, whether they are communicating with a human or with an AI or with a chatbot, but that it's not indeed that it's someone who was the victim of sexual harassment, really needed to talk to a person and thought they were, and then after a while figure out that they're actually not.
It was an avatar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst case scenario.
And it depends also, of course, on the quality of the AI. Yeah? So when you have a low, bad quality AI, that will not help you to have people having trust in the whistleblowing process.
Mm-hmm. And if we're going back to the whistleblowing part, if we're talking about AI collecting information, additional information from a reporter in order to make a case, right? Then AI will eventually be able to classify an incoming message. Is this serious enough? Is it a case? Is it not a case? In order to do that, then AI will be basing the output on the input. So, right, the input for organizations in this case will be their code of conduct. But then if we have AI judge what is misconduct and what is not, wouldn't that be a limitation for organizations? What would happen in terms of, learning and improving our code of conduct? Just because something is not in the code of conduct yet doesn't mean that it's ethical. What do you think?
Yeah, I work also at the university, and I see increasingly the use of AI in also doing exams among students. And there we face the same challenges, but at the same time, we really believe in the value of AI. You see also increasingly the use of AI being used in courts. So it's all from that AI can be very useful also to help you to make decisions, because it can look to the past. What is the jurisprudence or the morisprudence? Or what are the norms and the values also externally? I sometimes ask ChatGPT to questions about what is ethics, to how should I deal with a dilemma, or what is the current morality about, for example, sexual relationships in organizations. And well, the response is tear-jerking usually. I'm quite impressed by the quality of that. So you can also use AI as a database of, say, morality. I think that is a huge advantage also of AI.
I would consider AI as a moral instance, actually. So I don't expect that AI will take decisions. Actually, for me, it's a tool. It's supporting the process. It makes it easier, actually, to grab all necessary information, can give recommendations maybe on a really large basis of data. But the final decision has been taken by a human being, from my point of view, actually. Even in the compliance process, it's very important, actually, to have a final view there. But of course, the decision can be better using AI technology, since you might have a really broader basis on decision-making processes, actually. So I would see the future there, not that the AI will figure out whether this is a compliance case or not, or this is misconduct or not. This has been looked after by a human being. So that's a good news for all compliance officers out there, and all others. You will not be replaced by an AI.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also from a legal point of view, if you have the AI making decisions, you're in a whole other legal ballpark. If you just have it improving the way that humans make decisions, that's doable. Having it fully automated, you run into many issues. And I think as a society, we're also not ready for it, which, I mean, Well mentioned the courts using it. I think there's a reason to use it on the admin side and not to replace the judge.
Yeah, but I see among many schools and universities right now, they use also AI in the grading process. So, and grading is decision making, is evaluating. So, but of course, there should always be human oversight. So I fully agree with you. But I think we should also turn it around. Suppose that AI is doing everything, except there are good reasons not to do it, and let's do it by human beings. So,
and I wouldn't blow up this whole discussion, actually, since we already have areas where AI is already taking decisions. For instance, financing processes in banks, for instance, they are really automated functions after the decision has been made by a technology, whether you got a credit or not, so or a loan or not. And so this is something we are used to it. And I think you really be careful, but I think in compliance, you will not have these automated
and that's
decision-making process.
That's what I wanted to connect it to, because, for example, for a compliance officer, if a case comes in and it's, number-based, so it's like regards fraud or something that can be measured, it can be like there's data to compare it to, then AI could eventually do a lot of the initial filtering, let's say, or like, oh yes, this is indeed outside of the scope of our code of conduct, whatever numbers are different, have a look at it. But if it's a case that comes in that is, about like more sensitive topic, harassment, for example, then the compliance officer really needs to be there, because they have to interview the person, they have to understand what they're coming from, and that's maybe something that you cannot get out of using AI. So then the good news is what you were describing earlier, Olaf, that AI will not be able to completely replace compliance officers or other ethical roles.
But I would say that the good news is that AI can be very useful for compliance officers to do their work better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
By the way, I see the results in this in the poll that most people think that AI is not very desirable to be used for deciding on whether it's misconduct or not.
Maybe it's mostly Dutch viewers who have seen that our government, when they use AI, it usually goes wrong in the most horrible ways.
We also have a really nice comment from Mirko, who agrees that AI, a limitation of AI, it's that it won't be able to identify sentiment.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I think it is especially important that you have, say, a high quality AI that is ethical and that we invest in that instead of defending, say, the human autonomy.
Yeah, and let's continue on the topic of have a report that comes in and is very sensitive, contains a lot of sensitive data, but it is initially treated by an AI, like my whistleblowing tool uses AI integrations. What happens there in terms of GDPR?
Well, from a GDPR point of view, the easy thing is that the GDPR doesn't care about the technology that you use. So if you are doing exactly the same as you're doing today, but tomorrow you use an AI to help you do it, the GDPR would treat that exactly the same. It would become different when tomorrow you start having the AI make decisions, and where today a human does it. That's a different ballpark. But in general, if you don't change anything in the process that you use the data for, the requirements will stay the same. But what I think is really important here to realize for anyone who uses AI is that many times when you use an AI tool, especially the cheap ones or the free ones, you actually pay with your data. So when you put data through it, it's not only used for what you want to use it for, but you are also, in the terms and conditions, allowing the provider of that tool to use the data to improve their own tool or develop new AI things. And those are all new purposes that in the GDPR, require a new basis.
Yeah.
All right. So to act a little bit as a devil's advocate here. Let's say a company is using AI for the initial stages of the communication cycle with the employee. Do, in your opinion, employees need to know that they are talking to an AI and not a real human? Because if the purpose of me using a whistleblowing solution is to find a solution to my problem, and if an AI can help me do that, then does it really matter who helps me in the end?
Well, from my opinion, of course, it does matter, actually. You need to know who to speak to, and it depends upon the channel. Of course, chatbots are already used in customer support processes as well as in whistleblowing systems, actually. So the people know that maybe they got an automated answer. But at the end, actually, it's really important to know whether there is a person on the other side or is there an AI technology. And so I think transparency is key there, and it's very important to make this transparent, how intense the AI involvement might be here. And of course, I think upcoming regulation will ask for that as well. So you need to label it anyhow. But with respect to have a trustful whistleblowing system, it makes totally sense to play there with open cards and to give all necessary information also to the whistleblower, how his message is treated and how it is processed.
Yeah, fully agree. So the whistleblower procedure is all about openness, speaking up, transparency, that people have to trust. So when the process itself is not open, transparent, clear, honest, etc., it will not fly.
And I think you can also flip it around. If you did a good job at choosing an ethical AI that works well, why would you hide it? You would only hide it if there is something to hide.
Very true. And I can see that most of the people watching us agree with us. The vast majority, actually, as you can see, 82%.
We already saw it.
There's a question coming in from Luis. Luis wants to know if anyone has already seen real-life practical examples of AI being used in SpeakUp processes, and if those were successful or not.
Actually, beside the chatbots, I have seen technology where you are communicating to a chatbot. A chatbot means in this case actually that you're not writing a message, but you're interacting in a Q&A session to figure out that you give all necessary information to process the issue in the whistleblowing system. I've seen that as a chatbot, but through AI saying that an automated process in analyzing the data and forwarding it to a different department or to make a triage on that. I haven't seen that.
No, me neither. I think there are many forms of AI that you could probably, with relatively limited changes, apply here as well. For example, in the hiring context, ranking resumes according to your own standards are very widely available already. If you would want to, you could, I think, apply the same to whistleblowing reports.
Yeah, at the KPMG where I work, the Department of Forensic, 25 people work there doing investigations into misconduct by, say, technology glasses on. So AI is especially nowadays used in the investigation process, handling a lot of data, etc. So I expect there nowadays that organizations can most benefit from using AI, and then increasingly also use AI in the intake, in the communication upfront, and finally maybe in the decision-making process as a tool, as an instrument, but not right now. Yeah.
And we have another very interesting question from Wim, who asks that specifically to whistleblowing, how could we avoid that a bot repeats some biased results that previously happened in the company?
Yeah, well, I think for any, and in an AI context, it's usually called the feedback loop, which happens if you have an AI that's automatically learning. For example, if you are showing job advertisements and it's only the men clicking on it, and then the algorithm automatically decides, well, then I'm never going to show it to women again. Always a problem, these feedback loops. So you shouldn't automatically incorporate feedback into the tool itself. You should just collect all the feedback over, 2-3 months, then make a new version, do the bias tests on the new version, and then apply those learnings. But don't do it automatically over time.
And I think this is also a normal process we are seeing also in other legal areas where AI is used to take legal decisions or to evaluate a certain case from a legal perspective. And of course, you always need the human factor. I just mentioned actually that the final decision, that also for the feedback loop, it's very important to verify, to analyze the result out of the process. I think this will be something which will be done anyhow, actually, to also do a quality control on the AI process. Everybody will do that. I think in customer support, customer communication, this is already done, actually, I think. So this is something where we are combined to other areas, actually, where the AI process might be very much advanced, actually, like figuring out and finding the right solution for the customer or for the messenger in our whistleblowing process.
Yeah, but say AI can be biased. Human beings are biased, at least. So it's the challenge to find the best of both worlds. And I think especially in the development of the AI and how to combine that with human interaction and human oversight on the one hand, and also testing and checking and monitoring that. So I think also AI auditing will be also very crucial, that you really know that the whole process is, say, ethical.
But these checks and balances procedures are very much known to the digital industries. Actually, so that's, for instance, if you're working for a social media platform, you already have to figure out whether a message is harassment or not. Actually, so these processes can be adopted, and I think there is already something. Of course, it's a discussion on whether there are bias or not, and of course, for quality protection reasons, I think you're forced to do something with respect to that, and not just accepting what the AI is.
Yeah, and if we consider little like all the requirements and the best practices that exist around, implementing whistleblowing tools, there's always a discussion about like 3 main values, and that is always trust, impartiality, and protection. In using AI to enhance, our capabilities for the compliance team, to conduct better case investigations, what will the effects be on these 3 values? Can AI help us, increase the protection for the whistleblower?
From my perspective, of course, it can actually to shape the process, but give a better quality into the process, actually to help the messenger actually to get better result out of the whistleblowing process. Of course, trust is the first and the most important thing. Only a trustful process will help the messenger actually to raise a concern. If you're burning your whistleblowing system by not handling cases or not having a trustful procedure behind it, and this means also to communicate consequences out of it. For instance, something which comes from the whistleblower directive already, that you need to inform also the whistleblower on the result, the outcome out of his concern or his message. This is recommended actually. So trust is the main topic, and AI can help that to have a better and a trustful system.
And I was actually, I found a research done by Forrester a few years ago, which said that 1 in 5 leaders, they would not implement AI-based solutions if that would threaten employee trust. 1 in 5. If you turn it around, it means that 4 out of 5 leaders would actually do it. But then the question is, how can we use AI to increase feelings of trust, or like to build better trust with employees?
Yeah, I think any trust in AI is dependent on explainability. I don't think as humans we'll ever be able to trust a system that is a total black box and we have no clue what happens inside. Then, if it goes against us, we'll always say it's biased because we can't show that it's not. So I think that explainability there is the key requirement for AI systems to be trustworthy.
Is that the case? Because when I walk over a bridge, I can't explain why that bridge holds me and why that bridge is standing there. I trust the system around it. Instead of that, it should be explainable, because maybe in the end AI can't be explainable because that's generative AI, that it can't in the end be that explainable that we want to have it.
Yeah, with the difference that the bridge has been standing there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think with any new developments that are going so rapidly like this, humans, and at least myself, I have difficulty trusting it if it's not explainable to me at all.
And what you said, the bridge has been there for a long time, so trust has been established, right?
Yeah. So let's go for established trust.
Yeah.
We've mentioned already the upcoming regulation on using AI in your company. What are some other requirements that could maybe affect whistleblowing?
Yeah, so there's an upcoming EU law on AI, and it's important to understand that it has sort of a risk-based approach in which it bans sort of the way too risky AI systems, but then below it there's the category where the brunt of all of the requirements will apply, which is called the high-risk AI. Now, there's many sectors where it will be really, a small part of you will maybe high risk and others may not be. But the HR context is covered so broadly that essentially anything you do with HR, with AI in relation to HR or in relation to employees will be considered high risk, which has some consequences. For example, that you have to do bias testing and monitoring, which means that you actually have to be able to show that it's not biased, contrary to what it's now, that it's often that you, somebody else has to show that it's biased. So that's a big difference. And explainability as well. You don't have to be able to show the entire source code of the application, but you will have to be able to explain sort of in layman's terms how it works on a high level.
Yeah.
All right, so there is some promising information in there, and I was just looking at the poll that says, I think this is the poll that divided people the most, if they would still implement AI solutions despite employee trust, and you can see that most people are like not sure, but then good to also see that 40% they wouldn't do it because employee trust comes first.
But I think this reflects the situation we have out there, that whether you trust your employer or not, actually. So it's a company culture issue, actually, how intensively you're using that. It's also the same figures you see if you trust people in home office or not doing proper work or something. I would consider that. And of course, transparency is very important, that everybody knows what is going on there. And I think this is also a benefit for all participants, also for employees, employer. Actually, everybody knows that as more transparency is in there in the process, as better it is. So explain it to the people makes it easier, of course. And just mentioned that communication is key, not just company culture, but also communication culture in the company. Play with open cards, tell everyone what's going on here in the company. And then, of course, you have these trust. And so, trust has to be earned. If you have burned it,
yeah, but I would say in the end, it starts with, say, high quality AI. When you have a low quality AI, you can be transparent and explainable, etc., and communicate it, but it remains low quality, and so I hope that part of the respondents are not confident in using AI because the technology has not at the standard we would like to have it. So I think the investment in having good ethical AI technologies is most important.
And I see that we have another message from Joost, which is very interesting because it builds a little bit on what we were discussing earlier. So the question is, if the bridge that we were talking about earlier were to it totally change every day, it's a different bridge, would it still maintain the same level of trust?
Well, I think that if indeed it changes every day, but after 1,000 days it's still there, it will have trust. But if it changes every day and 50% of the days it breaks down, it probably won't.
Yeah, but I would say trust is based on, say, the system. So who builds the trust, who supervises the trust, who monitors the trust. So I think it's especially relates to AI regarding whistleblowing. Who builds the AI in whistleblowing, who monitors the AI, who works with it. I think that's also important next to, say, the technology or the bridge itself.
Yeah, I don't know whether this example is really right, since AI doesn't mean that everything is changing constantly. As much as I see it, the current tools I see actually is more that it's of course doing the good thing better, even better. So having more data, having more information, and to have a broader view on something. It's not like in compliance saying that the AI takes now this decision and tomorrow a totally different. It's not working like that. AI is a tool. It's a software. It's a technology. It's a software tool. Nothing more than that. I don't think that this will be the future. That of course the bridge is changing every day. It's not AI actually. I understand it.
But in the future, if we time travel to what maybe sounds like science fiction right now, but we know how this is how the world works. Let's say we're take a factory, a manufacturer as an example, where you have bot colleagues, right? The production process is automated to a certain extent. So what if one of your bot colleagues decides that this is an unsafe environment and I need to raise an alarm? It could, on one hand, be very helpful. Let's say you have an alert that says, okay, this part of the factory is dangerous for humans to walk there. Stay out. But on the other hand, so the question is twofold. So is it still considered whistleblowing if it's automated to this extent? And the second would be, what would be the effect on actual whistleblowers that have concerns to share?
Yeah, I would think it's not whistleblowing anymore. It's more a comprehensive 24/7 monitoring project.
Yes, bot reporting.
Yeah.
It's more a security system and automated risk alarm system. Actually, we know that kind of technology in IT security, in data protection, for instance. We already have technologies which are raising concern, but it's not whistleblowing like we understand it. I think to raise a real human concern, it's about whistleblowing, and this is a very important information source, one of the main sources we have in compliance from my point of view. All other sources are also important. Monitoring is important, but whistleblowing can't be, replaced by an automized whistleblower or something. I wouldn't concern it like that.
Yeah, because the definition of whistleblowing is that the whistleblower perceives barriers to report the incident to the people involved.
Yeah.
And a bot colleague doesn't experience barriers.
Exactly. So my question was, eventually, if you have bot colleagues that can raise the alarm, you can still technically provide more protection for your employees, right?
Of course.
And it's definitely going to be maybe a way to be more impartial. But then the effect on the employees working there in terms of whistleblowing, do I raise this concern? I know this bot is monitoring us 24/7. They're going to know anyways. So
Yeah, but your computer is also monitoring what you do behind your computer. So it's already there.
And maybe at the end, if the people are relying just on technical systems, maybe they're too lazy to raise concerns. So I wouldn't really advise on doing everything now fully digital, automized. So don't do anything. I think this would point in the wrong direction. I think you really need the people to encourage them to speak up and to raise concerns. You cannot just rely on technical systems. Not in compliance.
And we mentioned the culture of trust quite a few times by now. If you really feel the need as a company to implement a full-scale monitoring system in which you monitor your employees all the time, is there really any trust if you feel that you have to monitor them like that? I doubt it.
Yes, and it's quite interesting to see that, it feels like a race. A lot of people are discussing. I was listening to a podcast before preparing for this interview, and it was the ex-chief business officer of Google X, and he was explaining, we all very much understand the dangers and the risks involved in all of this AI revolution, but it feels like a race. So unless we get on the train, we're going to miss it. So it feels like this is a one-way street, and it seems like this is where we're all heading to. So what would your advice be for companies to start preparing?
Well, indeed, in my view, right now, because we don't really have AI laws in the world, it's very much a race to the bottom, where the only focus is on how advanced can we make it, what can we do, and no real thought is given to what should we do. And also not human rights like privacy rights are often not respected. So, but the good news is we are getting AI laws in Europe, but in many other jurisdictions around the world. Mm-hmm. So, given that those laws will not only apply to new AI systems, but also to AI systems that are already in the market, and that is not going to be too much longer, at least here in Europe, before we get the law. If I would be building an AI system right now, I would already be looking at the transparency and explainability requirements that my system needs to comply with to be sure that I don't spend a lot of money right now on a system that will be illegal in 2 years.
Yeah, and many organizations already have, developed, a specific code of conduct for themselves for AI ethics. So self-regulation is also an important way to build up trust and
to be more optimistic. Actually, I think AI will enhance the whole compliance community. Actually, since I think that in the future, since compliance is very human resource consuming, actually, I think that smaller and mid-sized companies will have the opportunity to implement a data-driven compliance management system using AI technology that you can run compliance with 2 or 3 people on a certain level and giving more trust to it. So there is a big opportunity also for smaller companies to do compliance work. At the moment, probably they don't have the resources. And you should point at that, look into this, since I see a lot of advantages there, actually, that compliance will be more normal also in small size companies.
That's promising. And I see that our time is almost up. So to sum it up a little bit, I think we all agree that at the end of the day, this is all about culture. This is why organizations implement whistleblowing solutions in the first place, is to enhance their culture, right? And if, other than being compliant, if at the end of the day, AI can help us do that better, then it's not necessarily a bad thing. As a conclusion, what do you think? Is AI and whistleblowing a good match or a risky area?
I think it's a good match if it's done right.
Yeah, I would say it's both, and it depends on what you make out of it as an organization. And by the way, I asked ChatGPT to ask for the ethical risks of AI in whistleblowing, and I think we all addressed them, by the way. So ChatGPT also is very helpful. And also, by the way, the benefits of AI in the whistleblowing process. So thanks to AI. Yeah.
I think it's not a real question, since there will be always something in the whistleblowing process with respect to AI, and how intensive you're using this technology depends upon how the technology is shaped, how you implement it, and what you want to do with it. And so I'm very optimistic, actually, that will play an important role in all compliance management systems, as well as in the whistleblowing technologies.
So I will take all of that as maybe. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thank you all very much for attending. Special thank you to you for being here with us. We hope that you enjoyed your time with us and that you've gained some information from the session. And as a last note, because we plan on hosting more webinars in the future, we'd like to ask for your help. So after you close this little window, there's going to be a little survey for you to fill in. And of course, if you still have any questions, you'd like to discuss the topic a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us. You'll receive an email with some information on us after this webinar. For now, I wish you all to have a lovely day. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to SpeakUp Talks. For more expert insights, visit speakup.com and check out our resources section. Keep an eye out for our next podcast. Till then, enjoy the summer.